Friedrich Nietzsche was a German philosopher born in 1844. He lived during the late 19th century, a time when Europe was changing quickly. The Industrial Revolution had altered society, science was advancing, and traditional beliefs were being questioned. Nietzsche was part of this shift. He challenged many established ideas about morality, religion, and human nature. His work was often controversial, and he did not fit neatly into the mainstream academic world. Nietzsche's early life was marked by tragedy. His father, a Lutheran pastor, died when Nietzsche was just a child. This loss shaped much of his early experience. He grew up in a quiet household, mostly surrounded by women, his mother, sister, and grandmother. Despite the sadness, Nietzsche was a brilliant student. He quickly showed talent in classical languages and philosophy. By his mid-20s, he was appointed as a professor at the University of Basel in Switzerland. This was an exceptional achievement for someone so young. However, Nietzsche's health was poor throughout his life. He suffered from severe headaches, vision problems, and stomach issues. These illnesses often forced him to take breaks from teaching and writing. His pain was constant, and he spent much of his time alone, traveling in search of better climates. These physical struggles influenced his thinking deeply. Unlike many philosophers who lived comfortable academic lives, Nietzsche experienced real suffering firsthand. Loneliness was another constant factor. Nietzsche never married and found it difficult to maintain close relationships. His ideas were often misunderstood, and many peers distanced themselves from him. This isolation was partly by choice, as he valued independence, but it also stemmed from his unconventional views. His writing style was provocative and poetic, which made him hard to classify. At times, he was seen as dangerous or even mad. Nietzsche's philosophy emerged from these conditions. His work reflects a mind wrestling with pain, solitude, and conflict. He did not write from a place of comfort or certainty. Instead, he faced life's harsh realities directly. This gave his ideas an authenticity that remains compelling. When Nietzsche spoke about suffering and strength, it was not theory alone, but lived experience. Central to Nietzsche's thought is the idea that suffering is not something to avoid at all costs. Instead, it can be a source of growth and power. He believed that pain and hardship were essential parts of life and could lead to greater resilience. This stands in contrast to many other philosophies that see suffering as something purely negative or to be escaped. Nietzsche's perspective is that facing suffering boldly is necessary for developing inner strength. Power for Nietzsche is not about control over others or domination. It is more about self-mastery and the ability to create meaning in life despite difficulties. He called this the will to power. This drive pushes individuals to overcome obstacles and rise above limitations. Nietzsche argued that humans have an inherent force to expand their capabilities and define their values independently. Strength, in Nietzsche's terms, means something deeper than physical or external force. It is a quality of the spirit and mind. It involves embracing challenges, learning from failure, and continuously pushing oneself to improve. Nietzsche saw strength as a process, not a fixed state. It requires effort, courage, and persistence. Resilience connects closely to this. It is the capacity to recover from setbacks and continue moving forward. Nietzsche believed resilience was cultivated by accepting life's difficulties rather than denying them. He introduced the concept of amor fati, or love of fate, which means embracing everything that happens, including suffering, as necessary and valuable. Nietzsche's background, his struggles with illness, isolation, and rejection, gave weight to his ideas. His reflections on pain and power come from a place of real engagement, not abstract speculation. This makes his philosophy relevant beyond academic circles. It speaks to anyone who has faced hardship and wants to find a way to turn that into strength. In summary, Nietzsche lived in a turbulent time, both historically and personally. His life was shaped by loss, illness, and solitude. These conditions informed his philosophy, which focuses on transforming suffering into a source of power. He challenged conventional views by arguing that pain is not just to be endured, but embraced as a path to resilience. His key themes include the will to power, self-overcoming, strength of spirit, and acceptance of fate. These ideas offer a framework for understanding how individuals can respond to adversity in a way that builds rather than breaks them. Nietzsche's understanding of suffering goes beyond simple pain or misfortune. For him, suffering includes physical pain, but it also covers mental and spiritual struggles. He saw suffering as a fundamental part of human existence, something everyone must face. Unlike some ideas that treat suffering as an accident or a punishment, Nietzsche believed it was an unavoidable condition of life. He made a clear distinction between two kinds of suffering. One is passive suffering, which is when a person feels overwhelmed and powerless. This kind of suffering can lead to despair or victimhood. The other kind is active suffering. This is when someone chooses to face pain, use it, and grow from it. Active suffering becomes a tool for self-improvement and transformation. Nietzsche argued that most people avoid suffering because it is unpleasant and painful. Society often teaches people to seek comfort and safety, to shield themselves from hardship. But Nietzsche challenged this view. He believed avoiding suffering limits growth. Only by confronting pain directly can a person develop strength and character. One key idea Nietzsche introduced is called amor fati, which means love of fate. This is the acceptance of everything that happens in life, including suffering. Rather than resenting pain or wishing it away, a person practicing amor fati embraces it as necessary. This acceptance turns suffering from a burden into a source of meaning. This does not mean Nietzsche promoted suffering for its own sake. Instead, he saw suffering as a challenge to be met, not avoided. It is an opportunity to test one's limits and build resilience. He believed that the experience of hardship pushes people to discover new strengths they did not know they had. Suffering, in Nietzsche's philosophy, is connected to growth and creativity. Pain forces reflection and self-examination. It can break down old values that no longer serve and open the way for new ideas and goals. This process is not easy, but it is essential for becoming a stronger, more capable individual. Nietzsche's view of suffering contrasts sharply with other philosophies that focus on escaping pain. For example, many religious or moral systems encourage people to seek comfort, forgiveness, or salvation from suffering. Nietzsche questioned these approaches, seeing them as ways to avoid facing reality. He saw that the desire to avoid suffering often leads to weakness and denial. People may become passive or dependent on external comforts. Nietzsche wanted people to take responsibility for their own lives, including their suffering. This responsibility is the foundation for true power. Pain, then, is not an enemy but a teacher. It forces people to confront themselves honestly. In this way, suffering can reveal weaknesses, but also hidden strengths. It is a test that, if met with courage, leads to growth. Nietzsche's perspective also involves a rejection of victim mentality. He did not believe suffering should lead to self-pity or resentment. Instead, suffering should provoke action and self-overcoming. People must transform their pain into something productive. This transformation requires effort and intention. It is not automatic or easy. But Nietzsche showed that by changing one's attitude toward suffering, it is possible to convert hardship into a source of power. In this sense, suffering is closely linked to Nietzsche's idea of the will to power. The will to power is the drive to overcome obstacles and assert oneself. Suffering, when engaged with actively, fuels this will. It becomes the energy that pushes a person to grow beyond their previous limits. Nietzsche's emphasis on suffering also ties into his critique of traditional morality. He argued that many moral systems discourage strength and resilience by promoting values like meekness or self-denial. Instead, he called for a re-evaluation of values, where suffering and strength are respected. Ultimately, Nietzsche presents suffering as a vital part of life that should be met directly and embraced. It is not a sign of failure, but an essential condition for building strength and character. Through suffering, a person gains resilience, sharpens their will, and moves closer to realizing their potential. Nietzsche's idea of the will to power is central to his philosophy. It is the basic force that drives all living things, especially humans. Unlike some ideas that say people are mainly motivated by survival or pleasure, Nietzsche believed the will to power is the desire to grow, improve, and assert oneself. It is the urge to overcome challenges and expand one's abilities. The will to power is not about controlling others or gaining dominance in a negative sense. Instead, it focuses on personal development and self-mastery. Nietzsche saw it as the fundamental energy behind creativity, ambition, and achievement. It pushes people to reach beyond their current limits and shape their lives according to their own values. Suffering plays a key role in this process. When a person faces hardship, the will to power responds by motivating action. Instead of giving up, the individual uses suffering as a stepping stone. Pain becomes fuel that strengthens the will, encouraging growth and transformation. This idea opposes the view that suffering simply weakens or destroys a person. Nietzsche argued that many people misunderstand suffering because they focus only on its negative effects. In reality, suffering can activate the will to power and lead to greater strength. Nietzsche illustrated this through examples in his writing, such as the figure of Zarathustra, who faces trials and pain but uses these experiences to rise higher. Zarathustra's journey represents the ideal of self-overcoming, where suffering is not avoided, but used as a tool for becoming stronger. The will to power also explains why some individuals thrive in adversity while others falter. Those who embrace their challenges and channel their energy into growth embody the will to power. Others, who resist or deny suffering, lose the opportunity to develop their full potential. Nietzsche believed the will to power is universal, present in all living beings. However, humans have a unique ability to direct this force consciously. Unlike animals, people can reflect on their experiences and choose how to respond to suffering. This capacity for self-awareness makes the will to power especially significant in human life. This leads to Nietzsche's call for self-overcoming. This means constantly pushing beyond one's current state, facing challenges head-on, and transforming weakness into strength. Self-overcoming is an ongoing process, never complete. It demands courage and persistence, but offers growth and freedom. The will to power is also connected to creativity. Nietzsche argued that suffering and struggle inspire new ideas and values. Pain forces people to question old beliefs and invent new ways of living. In this sense, suffering is a catalyst for innovation and cultural progress. It is important to note that the will to power is not a simple desire for success or fame. It involves shaping one's character and life purpose. Nietzsche saw this as the highest goal: to create oneself and one's values in a world without fixed meaning. This philosophy challenges traditional views that value comfort, security, and conformity. Nietzsche encourages embracing risk, struggle, and uncertainty as necessary conditions for growth. The will to power is the force that drives this embrace. In practical terms, the will to power means taking responsibility for one's life, especially in the face of suffering. It means refusing to be a passive victim and instead becoming an active agent of change. This requires facing pain honestly and using it to fuel personal growth. Nietzsche's concept has influenced many fields, from psychology to art. It offers a way to understand human motivation beyond simple pleasure or avoidance of pain. The will to power shows how suffering can be transformed into strength and achievement. In summary, the will to power is the inner drive to grow, overcome obstacles, and create meaning. Suffering activates this drive, offering opportunities to build strength and character. Through the will to power, pain becomes a source of energy rather than defeat. The phrase, "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger," is often linked to Nietzsche, but it is frequently misunderstood. Many people interpret it as a simple statement that any pain or hardship automatically results in strength. This is not quite what Nietzsche meant. His idea is more complex. He didn't suggest that suffering is good by itself or that everyone who faces difficulty will emerge stronger without effort. Instead, he pointed out that surviving hardship can be an opportunity for growth, but only if it is met with the right attitude. Not all pain leads to strength. Some suffering breaks people, leaving lasting damage. Nietzsche acknowledged this. He knew that trauma can destroy the spirit and that not everyone responds to hardship in the same way. The difference lies in how suffering is approached. If pain is faced with awareness and courage, it can become a source of power. But if suffering is ignored, suppressed, or denied, it may result in weakness or despair. Nietzsche's view challenges popular culture, where the phrase is sometimes used to encourage blind endurance or toxic positivity. Simply telling someone to be stronger after pain ignores the complexity of human experience. He emphasized that strength is not automatic. It requires effort and struggle. Strength is developed through self-reflection, learning, and repeated challenges. It is a process, not a guarantee. The phrase also points to a transformation. The person who grows stronger does not remain the same after hardship. Suffering forces a change, often forcing a reevaluation of values and priorities. Nietzsche's philosophy rejects the idea that pain is meaningless or random. Instead, he invites us to see it as a test and a teacher. What doesn't kill you may make you stronger, but only if you engage with it actively. This active engagement means accepting suffering, not running from it. It means questioning your beliefs and using the experience to create new meaning. This process is difficult and requires honesty. Nietzsche warned against romanticizing suffering. He did not believe pain should be sought out or glorified. His point was about how to respond when pain is unavoidable. Survival alone is not enough. Simply getting through suffering is not the same as becoming stronger. Growth happens when suffering is transformed into a force for change. In this sense, the phrase, "what doesn't kill me makes me stronger," is an invitation to take responsibility for how we deal with hardship. It challenges passivity and victimhood. Nietzsche's perspective encourages resilience, but not at the cost of ignoring real damage or emotional pain. It supports a mature approach that acknowledges difficulty while seeking growth. Ultimately, Nietzsche's meaning is about empowerment. It is a call to find strength in adversity, but only by consciously working through suffering. This process builds character, will, and freedom. This interpretation helps explain why some people bounce back from trauma while others struggle. The difference lies in mindset and effort, not just the experience itself. In summary, Nietzsche's statement is not a simple motto. It is a complex insight into how suffering can lead to strength, but only through active engagement and transformation. It rejects blind endurance and calls for growth, meaning, and responsibility. Nietzsche offered specific ideas and methods to help people transform suffering into strength. These tools are not quick fixes, but practices that require thought and effort. They help a person face pain with clarity and use it for growth. One of the most important is the concept of self-overcoming. This means constantly pushing beyond your current limits. When pain arises, instead of avoiding it, you confront it. You learn from it and allow it to change you. This process is never finished. Every challenge is an opportunity to become stronger and wiser. Self-overcoming also involves questioning your beliefs and values. Nietzsche believed many people accept ideas without thinking. When suffering shakes those beliefs, it can feel like losing stability. But this crisis is a chance to rebuild your worldview on your own terms. It means creating your own meaning rather than relying on outside systems. Another tool Nietzsche proposed is amor fati, or the love of fate. This is the acceptance of everything that happens, good or bad, as necessary and valuable. Rather than wishing life were different, you embrace it fully, including its pain. Amor fati turns suffering into a gift, something to learn from instead of resent. This acceptance is not passive resignation. It is an active choice to say yes to life as it is. This mindset frees a person from bitterness and regret. It allows suffering to become part of a larger growth process. Nietzsche also emphasized the importance of embracing struggle. He saw struggle as the engine of growth and creativity. Life without challenges, he argued, leads to stagnation. Struggle forces adaptation, new thinking, and stronger will. This connects to his idea of eternal recurrence. It's a thought experiment asking if you could live your life over and over exactly as it happened. Nietzsche used this to encourage living so fully that you would accept repetition. It means embracing your fate, including suffering, with affirmation. Practically, Nietzsche's tools encourage developing resilience. This means bouncing back from setbacks instead of breaking down. Resilience comes from training your mind to see suffering as temporary and useful. It's built through experience, reflection, and action. Nietzsche also suggested creativity as a way to turn pain into power. Expressing oneself through art, writing, or other means channels suffering into something constructive. This process transforms raw pain into meaning and beauty. His writing itself is an example of this. Nietzsche took his own suffering and turned it into powerful philosophical work. His ideas challenge and inspire because they arise from real struggle. Finally, Nietzsche encouraged cultivating independence. He wanted people to rely on their own judgment and strength, rather than depending on others or accepted norms. This independence supports facing suffering without fear or avoidance. In summary, Nietzsche's tools include self-overcoming, amor fati, embracing struggle, eternal recurrence, resilience, creativity, and independence. These ideas form a guide for transforming pain into power. They require work, but offer a path to strength and freedom. Nietzsche's philosophy is not just theory. It can be seen in the lives of people who faced hardship and turned it into strength. These examples show how his ideas work in practice. Consider Nietzsche himself. Despite his poor health and loneliness, he produced some of the most influential philosophical works. His pain did not stop him. Instead, it pushed him to explore life deeply and write with urgency. Nietzsche's struggle shaped his thought and made it powerful. Another example is the artist Vincent van Gogh. Van Gogh suffered from mental illness, poverty, and rejection during his life. Yet, he continued to paint with intensity and passion. His suffering gave birth to art that expresses deep emotion and beauty. In this way, Van Gogh lived the idea that pain can lead to creative power. Similarly, the writer Viktor Frankl survived the horrors of a Nazi concentration camp. Frankl's suffering was extreme, but he found meaning in his experience. His will to power manifested in choosing how to respond, finding purpose despite unimaginable pain. Frankl's life embodies Nietzsche's idea that suffering can be a path to strength. Many athletes also demonstrate Nietzsche's philosophy. They train through physical pain, injury, and exhaustion. Their will to power drives them to push beyond limits. Suffering becomes a necessary part of their growth and achievement. In history, leaders who faced adversity and used it to build resilience also reflect Nietzsche's ideas. They did not give in to despair or bitterness. Instead, they took responsibility for their circumstances and forged new paths. Even everyday people embody these principles. Those who endure loss, illness, or failure and use the experience to grow stronger show how Nietzsche's philosophy applies broadly. Strength is not reserved for the famous or gifted. It is available to anyone willing to face suffering actively. These examples share common traits: acceptance of hardship, active engagement with pain, and transformation through effort. They show that suffering alone is not enough. What matters is the response. Nietzsche's philosophy offers a framework to understand these stories. It explains why some people collapse under pressure while others rise. The difference is the will to power, the inner drive to overcome and create meaning. By studying these lives, we see Nietzsche's ideas are not abstract. They are lived realities that shape human experience. They encourage us to rethink suffering from a new perspective. This perspective challenges cultural attitudes that avoid pain or treat it as failure. Instead, it invites embracing suffering as a teacher and guide. Through this embrace, strength emerges. In summary, Nietzsche's philosophy can be seen in real people who turned pain into power. From artists and thinkers to athletes and survivors, these examples show the will to power in action. They remind us that suffering, when faced with courage and intention, can lead to growth and freedom. Nietzsche's ideas on suffering and strength remain relevant today. In modern life, people face many forms of pain: stress, loss, failure, and uncertainty. His philosophy offers tools to meet these challenges and grow. One way to apply Nietzsche's thinking is by shifting perspective on suffering. Instead of seeing pain as something to avoid, it can be viewed as an opportunity. This doesn't mean welcoming hardship, but recognizing its potential to build resilience. In everyday struggles, this means facing problems directly. When difficulty arises, the first step is acceptance, not denial or avoidance. Accepting pain allows clearer thinking and a stronger response. Another application is practicing self-overcoming. This involves setting goals that push limits, whether in work, relationships, or personal growth. It means learning from failures and using setbacks as lessons rather than excuses. Amor fati, the love of fate, can also help today. It encourages embracing life's ups and downs without resentment. This mindset reduces bitterness and fosters peace even amid struggle. In a world focused on comfort and instant gratification, Nietzsche's call to embrace struggle can seem countercultural, but this embrace cultivates long-term strength and fulfillment. Creativity, another Nietzschean tool, remains vital. Expressing oneself through art, writing, or other outlets channels suffering into something meaningful. This process transforms pain into purpose. Nietzsche's idea of eternal recurrence asks whether you would be willing to live your life repeatedly, exactly as it is. Applying this thought encourages living authentically and fully, accepting all experiences. In practical terms, developing resilience means building habits that strengthen the mind and body. This includes physical exercise, meditation, or reflective journaling. These practices help manage pain and improve coping skills. Nietzsche's philosophy also reminds us to question societal values that may promote passivity or dependence. Instead, it encourages personal responsibility and independence. In relationships, Nietzsche's ideas support honest communication and mutual growth. Facing conflicts directly rather than avoiding them builds stronger connections. Finally, Nietzsche's philosophy inspires embracing uncertainty. Life is unpredictable, and suffering is part of that. By accepting this, people can find freedom from fear. In summary, Nietzsche's philosophy offers practical guidance for turning modern suffering into strength. Through acceptance, self-overcoming, amor fati, creativity, and resilience, people can face pain actively. This approach builds character and leads to a meaningful life. Nietzsche's philosophy on suffering and strength remains powerful and relevant long after his time. His ideas challenge us to rethink pain not as a curse, but as a source of power. This shift in perspective has influenced thinkers, artists, and everyday people alike. The central message is clear. Suffering is not something to escape, but something to engage with actively. By facing pain, we can grow beyond our limitations. This growth is not automatic. It requires courage, effort, and honesty. Nietzsche's emphasis on the will to power reminds us that human life is a continuous struggle to overcome obstacles. This struggle is not a sign of failure, but the very process that builds resilience and character. His tools, self-overcoming, amor fati, embracing struggle, and creativity, offer practical ways to turn suffering into strength. These tools invite responsibility, urging us to shape our lives with intention rather than passivity. Throughout history, many have embodied these ideas, turning hardship into achievement. Their examples show that Nietzsche's philosophy is not abstract, but lived and tested in reality. In today's world, where comfort is often prioritized and suffering is hidden or avoided, Nietzsche's call to embrace pain is more urgent than ever. His philosophy offers a path to meaning and freedom through resilience. This lasting impact is evident in psychology, literature, and popular culture. The idea that hardship can be transformative has become a common theme in stories of growth and success. Nietzsche's work continues to inspire people to face life's challenges with strength. It challenges easy answers and encourages deep reflection on what it means to live fully. In the end, Nietzsche teaches that power comes not from avoiding suffering but from meeting it head-on. Pain is a test, a teacher, and a source of energy for those willing to engage. This philosophy offers hope. It shows that even the darkest experiences can lead to growth and empowerment. Suffering, when faced wisely, becomes a foundation for strength. Nietzsche's legacy invites us all to rethink how we relate to pain. It calls for a new attitude, one that sees suffering as a vital part of becoming who we are meant to be. Through this understanding, we find not just endurance, but transformation, not just survival, but flourishing. Your pain is not your enemy, it is your forge. What doesn't kill you doesn't just leave you standing, it builds you stronger. We have come to the end of Nietzsche's teachings on resilience. If you found this video educative, kindly like the video, share it with your friends and loved ones, and subscribe to the channel for more educational content. Thank you.